Hey, everybody. Before we get into this next podcast with Jay from Green Beret Chronicles, please do us a favor and check out CardoMax.com for all of your caffeine, hydration, immunity boost needs. Sean Matson's got you covered at CardoMax.com. Use the promo code One's Ready to get yourself a discount. Great products. Comes in a little packet like this on the go. As you can tell, I'm not in the studio right now. I'm actually on a trip, and I've got a baggie full of those things to keep me going during this trip, because Lord knows I'm going to need the caffeine, and the hydration too. Also, please check out 18alphafitness.com. Use the promo code the number one, and ready. Check out Kevin's training plans. They are tailorable to you. He's got an app. He provides you feedback. It's not just a, hey, here's a plan, and then, you go on your merry way. He finds out what fitness level you're at, what fitness level you need to be at, and what kind of time frame he's working on. And then he can get you to where he needs you to be and where you need to be in order to be successful. Doesn't matter whether you're going in a pipeline or not, whether it's NSW, going to be a Ranger, Green Beret, or Air Force Special Warfare, or maybe you're just going to go into the fire department or just want to lose some weight and get healthy. He's got you covered. So check him out. 18alphafitness.com or 18afitness.com and promo code OneReady, and it'll get you covered. Now, on to Jay from Green Beret Chronicles. Great conversation. I appreciate Jay coming on. He's got a great YouTube channel. Make sure you check him out. He's also on social media. So go hit him up, send him DMs if you're interested in becoming a Green Beret, because he's got you covered. All right, on to the episode. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the One's Ready podcast. You're in the team room, and we have Jay Dorleus from Green Beret Chronicles, or the Green Beret Chronicles, on YouTube and Instagram. Appreciate you joining us, Jay.
Oh, of course, man. Like I said, I love you guys' platform. It's pretty similar to what myself and Buck are trying to do as far as helping guys get, to the regiment, right? There's a lot of stuff out there as far as the end of guys' career, the firefights and all of that. But I think we're in a unique position to actually catch these guys at the very beginning, the genesis of their careers, and kind of, coach, teach, and mentor, and try to get them to whatever regiment that they're trying to get to. So I love what you guys are doing over there for the Air Force.
Yeah, and the things that you and Buck are doing it's that kind of providing critical information to folks that is relevant and current, because there's so much information out there that it's not necessarily that it's bad information. It's just that sometimes it's dated, and a lot of these things change frequently, and just the data, nobody goes out there and takes the data down.
No.
So a Google search will still find all that old stuff. So it's just trying to keep it all relevant with all the changes. So, dude, so you're Green Beret, or you're now separated, right?
Yep. May 31st, separation retirement date. So I am officially free, free after 20 years of military service. Correct.
Awesome, dude. Well, congrats on the retirement, and congrats on a successful career.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. So, Abby, I know that we were just talking about it before we hit the record button about, having 20 plus years, but I mean, dude, you're in the same boat, man. You just kind of just slid that underneath and didn't say anything, but dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So congrats on that. Well, tell us a little bit about your career, like how you did you always want to be a Green Beret, and then like what kind of took you in that direction? Like how much prep did you do and that kind of stuff?
So initially it started for me in 2003. I finished high school. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. And then I took my my stab at college, right? I went to City College down in Harlem, New York, and I did one semester. For me, school has always been somewhat difficult, mainly because I'm an immigrant from Haiti. I came to the States when I was 10, so learning English was kind of difficult for me. So school has never been my strong point. But growing up, it was, you go to school and then you get a trade so you can make a living. So I took my stab at that. After a semester, I realized that in high school, the teachers actually cared, right? They lit that fire under you. If you didn't do your homework, they call your mom. They was like, hey, what's going on at home? So on and so forth. But in college, that wasn't the case. They expect you to show up. Well, they didn't even expect you to show up. They get paid either way. So I would show up and I would just sleep in the back of the class, and teacher would wake me up when it's time to leave, and that was it. And I quickly realized that, hey, college isn't for me. I had a 1.25 GPA. So I dropped out of college and I joined the Army. And the reason why I chose the Army is because I had an older brother that was currently in the military. So I spoke with him, got some feedback from him, and he was like, hey, the Army's given me the discipline that I need thus far. So maybe join the Army, get some experience, and then you can figure out what you want to do there. My intent growing up was to be a New York City cop. I wanted to serve as a cop, and one of the requirements were you either had 2 years of college or you had military experience. So I realized college was going to happen, so I joined the military to get that experience, and then the intent was to get out and then go join the New York City Police Department. So I joined the Army in 2003 as a 21 Bravo combat engineer. I went to basic training, Fort Leonard, Missouri, same with AIT. And then July 2003, I graduated. Fort Riley, Kansas was my first duty station. Got there, and then September of 2003, we deployed to Iraq. Wasn't expecting that, because recruiter told me, hey, you're a combat engineer, you're going to be building buildings, you're going to be doing, stuff at the range, blowing stuff up. But at that point in time, Iraq was, IED was still in its genesis. So they were trying to figure out how to combat IEDs and who was going to do it. And they were like, oh, combat engineers, you guys deal with landmines and demolitions. Why don't you guys figure out how to do route clearance? So that fell into our lap. We started training up on it, and then we started doing route clearance in Iraq and in Afghanistan. So did that deployment, came back. Thus far, I was loving the Army because I was like, dude, you're paying me to shoot guns, to blow stuff up, to do PT, and I don't have any responsibilities. And like everyone, like all of my leaders, they're telling me where to be, what to wear. Like they're giving me all the information. I just have to show up. So it was easy to me, and I was getting paid. So I did that. A year later, another deployment came up. So I went and did that. And I'm, moving through the ranks because the military is pretty easy. Like as long as you do what you're told and you're where it's supposed to be, like they're going to see you as being squared away. So I was good at PT and I was good at following instructions. So I was moving through the ranks. Within 4 years, I'm 86, squad leader. And then we deployed to Iraq on a second deployment. This was 07, 08. So I went there to that deployment. That one was a pretty bit rough because we're losing buddies left and right. And after that 15-month deployment was how long that one was, we got back from that one. And then it was time to make a decision on whether or not I was going to stay in the military or if I was going to punch out. At this point, I'm 5 years in. So I just took a hard look at where the engineer branch was going as far as route clearance. I was starting to get tired of it. I came down for drill sworn orders. I wasn't trying to go do that.
Oh, dude, no. No, I'm with you, man. And what's cool is you were able to identify that, and at least you knew what you didn't want to do.
Exactly. Exactly. So I had a squad leader. He was in the same boat that I was, and he went to selection. Leading up to this point, I didn't know anything about selection. I didn't know what special operation was. I've heard of the Rangers. So my squad leader, he got a packet together. He went down to Camp McCall and he attended selection. So he got back, squared away dude, in shape, and he didn't get picked up. So I was like, what is this selection stuff? So I started to dig into it. And then the following month, I put a packet together and I ended up going to selection. Leading up to that point, as far as prep goes, like I knew there was some land nav. So I would go to the recruiting office on Fort Riley and I would get with the SF recruiter that was there and he would take us out and we would conduct land nav.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. But it was still not anything compared to what I was going to face at selection. It was just the basics, enough to where I felt somewhat comfortable to attend. As far as physical fitness, I've always been a fit dude. And I was 25 at the point, or at that time. So I would consider the best shape of my life. So I didn't really do much as it relates to that aspect. And then as far as the mental toughness wise, like I said, I was, deploying Iraq, losing buddies, going through that at a very early stage. So I felt like my mind was callous enough to handle whatever selection had to throw at me. So I went and, I had some ups and downs, but ultimately, I think what led me to, getting selected was the fact that I was a tad bit more senior. So leadership skills were on point. And then I was in good shape. Because land nav, it was like a roller coaster. Like I would have a good day and then I would have a bad day. But yeah, ended up getting picked up and then going to my unit and then clearing that. And then PCS hit a Fort Bragg to a Stoughton Q Corps.
Dude, land nav's she can be a cruel mistress because you can be on top of your game one day and then for whatever reason that next point that you're going to, I mean, on a 12-point course or something like that, you could be crushing it, and then point 7 you're like, I don't understand why I'm struggling with it, and then you're stuck.
Yeah.
It's so
It
bad.
was definitely an eye opener, especially doing it at night. Like I wasn't used to that aspect of it. And again, growing up in New York City where there is no jungle anywhere, it was an eye opener. But I think like most, people in this realm, as far as the special operation community, you kind of adapt and you learn as you go. You know what I mean? And that's exactly what I did on the land nav course over at selection.
Yeah, you mentioned something as well about the making E6 in 4 years. Like that is definitely an Army specific thing because we do not. It is impossible for us to make E6 that fast. And you guys definitely have the E7 at 7 kind of thing, at least in the SF world, not necessarily in Big Green Army, but yeah, there is the 7 at 7, so which is always a interesting thing for us.
Yeah. So I tell you so this is what I did, right? Because again, coming up, the military has always been easy to me. And I sat down with my platoon sergeant at one point in time, and he was doing like counseling and he was giving me feedback. And I asked him, I was like, hey, what do I need to do to get to the next rank? Because the Army does promote fast. But what I was doing in asking him that question was it was my way of holding him accountable, right? Because I was like, hey, I'm an E5. I want to be an E6. What do I need to do? So he laid it out for me. He was like, hey, I want you to do X, Y, and Z. And if you do all these in a couple of months, I'm going to send you to the E6 board. So I was like, okay, so now I have him committing to, hey, if I do all these things, next counseling session, we're going to sit down and I'm going to ask you, hey, I checked off all these blocks you wanted me to check off. Like you said, you're going to send me to the board. Is that still the case? And I'm putting him in a position at that point to either be a man of his word or try to, wiggle out of it. So that's how I was able to, get to the board at such a, early point in my career. And boards are pretty easy to me. Like I can memorize stuff like nobody's business. So once I got to the board, I was able to handle it. And of course, I had to do everything I needed to do to make sure I had points to actually get promoted. And then once you're past E6, at that point, it's all DA selected and all that. And I was ready for operations. So, and everybody in SF, we all get picked up for E7. As long as you're not
it's a guaranteed thing. Absolutely. And that's, because you guys are, at least the ODA kind of community is, all kind of higher ranking, when you get somebody like an Air Force guy that attaches to you who could be an E3, E4, there's a big rank disparity. And it's kind of, once you've already worked with us, you're kind of like, okay, well, Air Force is just a little bit different in terms of their rank structure. But I remember distinctly kind of showing up and being a A1C or a E3 or an E4 and kind of going like, really, we got this young ass dude hanging out with us, and around all these, crusty sergeant majors and stuff like that. It's just kind of the way that we do things versus SF. It's interesting.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, though, you guys have always, from my experience, from what I've seen, you guys have always carried yourself just like the rest of us, even though some of the guys that I've had were, E4s and E5s. like there was no, like there was no beat skip as far as you guys' like knowledge and ability to be able to do the job and also present yourself in a confident manner as far as when we're downrange and we're doing work. So
Well,
even though
that's
the ranks
good to
and
hear.
yeah, the maturity has always been there. And that's what blew my mind. And that's why, to this day, you guys are still one of my, favorite special operation forces. You know what I mean?
Well, I appreciate that. So
Yeah.
you kind of transition us into this because this is going to be one of my
Mhm.
kind of questions to you. But you have a very extensive career in special operations, and not just that, because you have that background of being CE beforehand, so you got to see Big Green Army. Then you wanted a more challenge. You went to selection, and you got to the teams, and then you start deploying because, I mean, dude, that's what we did, right?
Yeah.
We deployed, or we trained for deployment. We trained for upgrades and advanced schools and stuff like that. Yeah, we deploy, we'd come back, we'd refit, start training, just to deploy again. And that was you guys, that was NSW, that was us, that was the Raiders. So, like, what was your experience with any kind of Air Force Special Warfare that ended up attaching to you guys, whether it was downrange or in training?
So my first exposure was at airborne school. So for me, I wasn't airborne qualified. So after I got selection, I had to go to airborne school en route to the Q course. So I was at airborne school, and I met there was two Air Force dudes in my airborne platoon. And at that point, I didn't know anything about Air Force Special Operations. I literally just learned about Army Special Operations.
Yeah.
So those guys were in my squad within the platoon, and I just got to talking to them. And then they just kind of broke down for me what they did in the Air Force. And then their way of saying, of really, I guess, putting it together was, hey, Tyrese and Transformers. Yeah, that's what.
He's been an ambassador for us for a long time now.
He was like, that's what we do. I was like, okay, cool. Didn't really think much about it. And then fast forward, I get through the Q course and I get to my first team in 2010. So we deployed to Afghanistan at that point, and we were conducting village stability operations. And of course, we had our own little district. And within the enablers, we had Navy EOD, and then we had a Air Force CCT with us. Now, mind you, I'm the new guy, so I didn't really interact with that guy as much. He was hanging out with the seniors. I was just the new guy, just trying to, stay in my hole and not get myself in trouble. But we would go out and get into these, gunfights, and then I would see him in action. Right? He was pretty much attached to the captain. Whatever the captain needed as far as air support, he would relay that information to the aircraft, and then they would put rounds on target. But what really blew my mind about, his freaking, what's the word I'm looking for? His professionalism and his confidence is like the captain would say something, and then he would sit there and he would internalize it. And he was like, sir, that's not going to work. And I'm like, oh shit. Like, I thought he just kind of, I thought his job was to just, act, but he was also there as a voice of reasoning, because he's like, hey, sir, like, we can't do this because of X, Y, and Z. And the captain would sit there and take his feedback. And I was like, holy crap. I thought he was just, there to just relay orders to the bird, but he's also filtering it and make sure it makes sense, not only to protect the captain, to protect himself, and to protect us, to make sure there's no incidents, right? So really good dude, very professional. Again, like I said, I didn't have much interacting with him because I was still new. But fast forward 2012, we're deployed to Afghanistan again, and this time we're doing commandos. And now I'm a senior also, so I'm able to interact with everybody that's attached to the team. And we were at SOTF East, and we got to country, and there was a CCT already in country, so we fell in on that dude. Got to know him. First name is, well, I'll just say his first name. His first name was Corey. Short dude, like solid dude, man. And it always blows my mind because, like you step on an ODA team room and everybody's like big and tall. They look like me somewhat.
Yeah.
And then the CCT walks in and we're like, oh man, this dude is like, dude, have you even hit puberty? Like, what's going on, right? Just a small dude, So, you know what I mean? But once we, started running commandos and we're out there doing missions, like he was just as fast, just as accurate. Like it just blew my mind. And again, the amount of work that he was doing, especially when you're running commandos, it was 24 on, 24 off for like 8 months, just constantly going. And that dude, man, I can honestly say that we all owe our lives to that dude, right? Because we were in a lot of, danger close areas to where he had to put rounds, downrange around us and still, defeat the enemy or kill the enemy, without hurting us. And then just the professionalism and the amount of training that he did with us kind of blew our minds as far as, holy crap, not only is this dude smarter than us because he's in the Air Force, he's also able to, give the commander feedback, and also, be a freaking conduit between us and the aircraft to make sure that we're, safe. And then, so halfway through that trip, he ended up going back to the States, and we had another CCT come down. We just call him Matthew McConaughey just because he looked just like him. And that dude was just as professional. Again, lower enlisted dude, but kind of stepped into that role of, hey, I'm equal to everybody else in here, and we treated him like a part of the team. At no point did we have any issues with any of those dudes, man. Solid dudes. 2014, we went back again running commandos, and I had another kid. His first name was Devin, tall, scrawny dude, solid dude, and same thing, just running and gunning, 24 on, 24 off. And this dude was just, again, utmost professional, provided feedback to the captain. I remember this one incident to where we're on the rooftop and we're taking like enemy fire all over. And my captain called him over. He was like, hey, I need you to put rounds here, here, and here. And he was like, no, sir, we can't do that.
Nah, dude, that ain't gonna work.
And my captain was so pissed, man. He was like, what do you mean we can't do that? He was like, well, we can't do it because of X, Y, and Z. And, already states this, this, and this. If we do this, this is going to happen. Like, we just can't do that right now. And my captain walked away, took a breath. And then, my Fox went over. He was like, hey, sir, he's right. We can't really do that.
Bro, he just saved you from a 15-6. All right. Like,
man, he did. And that's always been, something that I admire about you guys is even though you guys were, because again, I understand the Air Force promotes different, but you guys still went through, all the, specialized training that an ODA, that a SEAL team, that the MORSOC would get to be able to infill with us and do whatever it is that we were doing. And then you guys also groom your dudes to be able to, speak to a sergeant major, a captain, a major, to make sure they understand, hey, these are our left and right limits. And if something doesn't look right, that dude is not afraid to push back and let the command know, like, hey, like, we can't do it that way because of X, Y, and Z. And that's something that I've always admired about you guys. Captain came around, after some sense was talked into him. After the mission, he actually pulled that dude aside. He was like, hey, thanks for pushing back. That made sense. Heat of battle, I could have easily made a bad, call. But that, again, just enhanced the reason why I respect you guys so much. Just because of that aspect alone. Because a lot of guys won't do that. Like, stand up to a captain or whoever to be like, hey, like, no, we're not doing this. Right. But that dude definitely did.
That's been my experience with ODAs too. Is I most of my time is actually with ODAs. I've got a little bit of time with NSW, and then I've got a good probably equal ODA time with Coalition, just because of I spent 8 years over at Mildenhall in the United Kingdom, so that kind of put me in a position to then work with foreign forces a little bit more. But SF specifically has been very welcoming, I'll say, in terms of accept it. Like, so I remember my first deployment with an ODA. I think the X-ray program was like just coming online, which I think was what, 2002.
Yeah,
Okay, I could be wrong,
yeah.
but I think like so the very first X-rays were kind of just arriving to team as they were getting in Afghanistan, and it was very similar. Like, hey, dude, I'm a self-contained ODA. We've got everybody. We don't need EOD because we got Charlies. We don't need a CCT or a JTAC because we've got an Echo. So, like, what are we doing here, right? And but you'd always get the team sergeant or or guys that had experience, like, just give them a chance kind of thing. And that it's always been welcoming, always been a kind of team environment. With that said, we always would have to, because everybody's got bad apples. We have assessment and selection, you guys, Q course and all that kind of stuff. And we try and weed out people that we don't necessarily meet the requirements that we have. But occasionally you get somebody who's just whatever, right? They're just not there. So it is still a, hey, when we attach to you guys or anybody else, it's still like okay, I need to make sure I'm on top of my game because I still need to prove that I'm credible. And usually it only takes, one engagement or something like that. And we're there. But, SF has always been very, very welcoming, to us, which is pretty awesome. So I definitely appreciate that from you and your community as a whole, because, professionals all around.
Yeah, definitely. Same here, man. Yeah, so it was mostly CCT on my end. We did have one PJ that was attached to us for my 2014 trip. And like he would pretty much work with 18 Delta. So most of the time he was over there hanging out with them. But again, like once it was hard to distinguish like who was who, especially once we got back to 5 and we're, out of uniform. Of course, we all, had the same, beard growing, like we all had the same attire on. So dudes are just, hanging out, and somebody that's not part of the team comes in, they don't know who's who. And, like everybody just kind of blend in. But yeah, that PJ was also pretty awesome dude, man. Like I said, when shit went down and the medic was doing work, he was right there helping him out. So
yeah. I mean, they're trained at the same level. I think there's some little minor nuances, but yeah, once we started, because I can't remember at what point we started attaching PJs to ODAs with ACT, almost like a pair. I want to say it was like 2008, 2009, but I could be wrong. But that was definitely a game changer, and it's rare that any whether it's SF or NSW says no to another shooter. Let me see. You're another shooter, and you have these other specialized capabilities. Yeah, and we got room. Like let's fucking do this. Yeah. So it's good.
Yeah. Because I've always been a big component of it. Because I get it. Like our echoes will go to Yuma and get SOTAC qualify or whatever. But it's like, dude, if I don't have to, free up that echo. Like if I could free up that echo to do his job and be another shooter and have my CCT handle SOTAC, responsibilities, then why wouldn't I do that? Same thing with EOD. If I can keep my 18 Charlie in the stack and have him do 18 Charlie stuff and SF guy stuff and have my EOD guy deal with the, IEDs and all that, like, why wouldn't I,
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And especially when it comes to, doing some of the other core activities that SOCOM requires of ODAs and stuff like that, it frees you guys up. I mean, you guys focus on that. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Air Force dudes can do FID in a, if it's airfield stuff, it's air stuff and medical stuff. Sure. Like we can do it as well as everybody else. But when it starts coming to more of the ODA specific stuff, like, man, I don't know how to do. Sure, maybe I could set up a fob, like, and get everything going and all the contracts and all the money and stuff like that. But you guys are designed that way, So it's just a different monster. It's a different capability. And I know I'm kind of going. what I just said in terms of setting up a fob or a forward operating base and setting up contracts and stuff, like most people aren't going to understand that, but I know, like, you get it. Like that is, you can't just roll up somewhere and go,
No,
well, this looks good. Let's set up here. It doesn't work like that.
no.
You got to build, you got to, there's a lot of mission planning involved in it. There's a lot of key leader engagement in terms of with those local tribes. And I'm speaking specifically, Afghanistan, Iraq kind of thing, but even other countries, like you don't just roll in someplace. There's got to be a lot of civic leader engagement and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we did. Like I mentioned, in 2010, when Village Stability Operations came on board, like we literally took an ODA and then put them in, a mud hut and told them, hey, you need to go through the building phase, and then you'll go to the train up phase, and then you go to the operational phase. We literally had to first go in there and gain permission to actually be there from the village elders.
Yep.
And then once that was done, then we chose a location that's not going to get in their way. And then once that was established in the 18 Charlie, we go to work to get all the necessary equipment needed to build that little outpost. And then once that's done, we had to go recruit a police force, ALP, Afghan Local Police. We recruited them, 18 Bravo trained them up. And then once all that was done, we went operational. Like we literally went operational with like 2 months left in our entire deployment. It took us 8 months to get all of that done. What I mean? But we're designed that way, right? As a Charlie, I had, classes when I was going to the Q course on how to establish a base camp. Like everything that I needed to do. Bravos learned how to train foreign forces, like everything else. So we learn all that stuff throughout the qualification course, so we can go down range and get inserted behind enemy lines in a remote village and make it work. You know what I mean? But having all those additional pieces, whether it's combat controller, an EOD guy, you put us all together in that little village. Now I can focus on doing my job. EOD guy can go clear, make sure we're good to go. If we're taking in the wreck, I can get the CCT spun up and then he can go do what he needs to do to make sure he gets air overhead to make sure that we're safe. Like everything kind of fits together, within that puzzle. And that's what makes it work,
Yeah, I kind of miss the forward operating base life. I don't know if you do, but like I miss being out at a very, out alone and unafraid in the middle of nowhere with, let's call it 60 folks, if you will, because you got your one ODA, then you've got your CE and your other folks that are, your kind of supporting mechanisms, and you're just taking care of business out there. And everybody, it's not like, all right, we're having camp meetings and hey, you're going to do this. Everybody at that point knows exactly what they need to be doing, and they just do it. It's like if people are playing word bingo here, see work, do work. If you know what you need to do, then you just go do it. The alphas know what they need. Alphas and foxes know what they need to do. The CCT knows what he needs to do. The Charlie's out there making sure that shit's going right on camp. I never saw a Charlie that wasn't in charge of the entire fob.
Yeah.
Like,
it's Charlie. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the Delta's out there holding med clinics and med caps and stuff like that, helping out locals, not just helping out folks on the fob, but helping out locals. And he would hold clinics, once a week. It was like freaking, there was a line out the freaking gate, and he's just helping people. So it's everybody on a fob is just doing what they need to do, doing what they know is right, and then still mission planning to conduct operations. Right. So it's just, I miss that. Miss that life quite a bit. It's fun.
Yeah, you and me both, because it's like that was by far like my best mission. Just because it's so grounded to the SF history. Right, we literally in a way we're conducting unconventional warfare. You know what I mean? Like we're in a village and we're away from the flagpole. We don't have to worry about all those distractions. Like we're literally waking up and we're mingling with the locals. Like we're, guys will come to the fob and say, hey, like we witnessed, XY put in an IED over there. Can you come check it out? And I'm grabbing, whoever, my CMRG and two other dudes. And I'm like, hey, Team Son, I'm going down the road to go clear an IED. And he's sending up a 5W. And like, that was like the SF mission, and we got away from it. It is what it is. But I loved it. That was probably one of my highlights of my SF career was doing
and that's important, right? Because you're building that community too. Like that community is relying on that ODA team as much as that ODA is relying on, because they didn't have to come tell you that there's an IED there, but it is also a threat to them. And they have bad actors in their own community that they don't necessarily have the ability to, take care of or handle, because those village elders are just that. They are elderly, and you get some folks that are out there and bad actors, and it's just, okay, well, we're going to have a cohesive relationship, and that there's, a push pull, and I'm missing the actual word that's, that helps explain it, but it's an important thing. And that was what was kind of special about what ODAs are doing out at FOBs.
Yeah. I agree 100%. Because once we transitioned, we got rid of that, and now we're doing commandos, and we're operating out of big Army installations. It was just a different vibe, just a different feel. Because at the end of the day, like I always, tell folks that reality is like we're just different human beings, right? Whether it's ODAs, CCTs, SEALs, MORSOC, Rangers, we're a different breed of men. And you put us in a environment that's gonna, tempt us or give us an opportunity to get in trouble.
Tempt us.
Guess what, man? We're gonna get in trouble. It is what it is, right? Because you'll hear professionalism, blah blah blah. I'm like, hey, man, like we're realists over here, right? If I don't keep my guys engaged, if I don't keep them doing work, busy outside the wire, they're gonna find trouble to get into.
Yep.
It is what it is. And once we transition to that, like, don't get me wrong, it's not as bad as, as it could have been, but there was still, like mishaps here and there to where I'm like, man, I wish we were just away from the flagpole in a freaking remote area, and I didn't have to worry about you guys, going out and doing dumb stuff,
Yeah, I mean, it's like, and I'm sure you flowed through, IUD and stuff like that on your way over, and you get some of those bases that are, they're little Americas. You got everything you could possibly want, and I actually found those environments to be very uncomfortable as well, because it's just like, well, this isn't, just across the, several hundred miles over there, there's some real things going down, and people are fighting for their lives or and actually doing some real things. And I'm not saying that the people in IUD were not, because they were helping support the mission, but at the same time, like when you step off that plane and there's, salsa nights or whatever like that, you're like, dude, what
are we doing?
What is this? Like, what? So it's just different. We were the same way. We tried to, if we could avoid flowing through places like that, or being, out of BAF or Kandahar, then we would, but sometimes it was just unavoidable, and you're like, all right, well, just got to keep our head down and keep everybody sane and clean and employed.
Good times.
Yeah. Well, dude, you've got a quite the following on Instagram and YouTube with a lot of the videos that you're doing, providing mentorship information for folks out there, the Green Beret Chronicles. So tell us a little bit about that project and where you kind of came up with the idea, and then where it's going, because you already alluded to before we hit record, and I can't remember if it was pre or post, but that you guys got some new stuff on the way.
Yeah. So within SF or Green Berets, like there's only so much you can do, right? I'm sure it's the same thing with the Air Force, right? When I was an E6, E7, I was a doer, right? I would use my hands to do stuff. Then once I got promoted to E8, like I was, like a manager, right? I tell my dudes what to do and they go execute. which I enjoyed doing that job. I had a chance to have my own team, coach, teach, and mentor, build my ODA the way that I wanted. Did work with those guys, but I only get to do that for 2 years, right? And now once that ended, got put in a first on position, did that job, and then I realized that I didn't really like being behind the desk. Right? I
No.
didn't like it. Admin work, and it was boring. So I was at a crossroad. I was like, man, I can, keep, pushing forward, try to make E9 and ride a desk for the rest of my career. At that point, I'm at 19 years, or I can, go see what else is out there. So with that in mind, I spoke to the family and I decided to head towards retirement. And as soon as I made that decision, it was like, like reality started to kick in. Not so much depression, but it was like, holy crap, like I've been institutionalized for the past, 19 years. All I've known has been the Army. It's literally raised me to the person that I am today, with all the different experiences and leaders that I've had. So it's like, what do I do next? I'm, 38 at this point. So it's like, what does the second half of my life looks like? So I struggled with that for a little bit, because I knew what I like to do, which is taking care of guys and then just making sure my dudes are all right, and pouring into them in whatever ways that I can. So I started to put pen to paper and try to figure out exactly how I was going to do that once I retired. The past 20 years, we've been running and gunning. We've been fighting the global war on terrorism. That's come to an end. And I'm a big fan of everything happens in cycles, right? Like we might be in a period right now where there's no major conflict. I understand there's stuff going on in Ukraine, but we're not as involved. But it's like, how do we preserve that 20 years of experience that, you and I have gone through, to pass that on to the next generation? So, to keep them from making some of the same mistakes that we've made when we first entered the war. So with that in mind, I, started getting on YouTube. I doing some research. I came across F&G Academy. I came across you guys' page. And I was like, man, I can do something similar to where, my 20 plus years of experience is not, just in my head, making me depressed every time I think about it. I can find a way to tailor it to the next generation, to share my, lessons learned, to share my knowledge. And with that in mind, I started Beret Chronicles on YouTube. And since then, and I'm sure you guys get this all the time, you can just see the hunger in the youth. They want the information. They want to go towards that route. They just need someone to point them in the right direction and give them the information. And I'm like, I always tell folks too, especially within my community, because we're the quiet professionals. And I'm like, hey, if we stay quiet enough, we're eventually just going to fade away, because we got to emerge with technology. You know what I mean? This isn't the 1960s. Like, technology is a thing. And the youth nowadays, we got to go wherever they're at. Because leading up to this point, I understand if, hey, my father was a Green Beret, automatically the son is going to know about it and he's going to gravitate towards it. But for some of these other guys that aren't, privy enough to having a family member that grew up in the military, they don't know what they don't know. But it's up to, old operators like, myself and other retirees to get the word out there, to show the youth like, hey, this is what I've been doing for the last 20 years. It was fulfilling. It gave me a purpose. Yeah. It gave me financial freedom. It gave me a structure, and it can do the same for you too. So here's the information. If you're interested, like, I can help get you to that point. And that's what I've been doing for the last year, man. And it's been working out pretty good to the point now. We just stood up a mentorship program, which, like, I know when I was a brand new guy on a team, like I was so scared. I didn't even want to talk to my team sergeant. You know what I mean? Like, I was lucky.
They're intimidating.
Yeah. I was lucky if I got any sort of mentorship, right? Like it was, OJT, just learn on the job and hope that you're doing it right. So I'm like, okay, well, how do I change that? Now I'm giving, guys that hasn't even joined the Army yet access to 20 plus years of experience that I have and dealing not only with the Army, but special operations. I'm giving, guys that just graduated the Q course an opportunity to get on the phone with me and say, hey, Jay, I'm reporting to, third group. Like, what do I need to do? I'm like, first thing you do is shut up and bring a shit ton of beer, right? Like, like I'm helping these guys along, so they can, hopefully succeed once they get to the ODA. So the mentorship program is going. I'm also helping guys get ready for selection through a bunch of prep courses, just basic stuff that I wish I knew when I came through. How to take care of my feet, how to pack a rucksack, how to do basic and advanced land nav, just leadership 101. Stuff that they're going to need at selection and that most guys don't have a clue on what to do. Because I didn't when I went. I got lucky. I figured it out, right? But if I can help these guys, better prepare, then why not? Because I always tell folks, like, I can give them the information all day. It's out there. They still have to show up and they still have to perform, right? I can't give them heart. I can't give them mental toughness. I'm just giving them the information, and then they didn't take it, go to selection, go through it, and if they come back on the back end, then it is what it is. So yeah, that's currently going on. And like I said, I'm as long as there's a need for it, which I do my best to go read my comments. And every time I see like, hey, Jay, this is just what I needed. Hey, this is very helpful. Even for the folks that aren't trying to join the military, like if people are still getting value from it, then I'm going to continue doing it because it fills the void that was missing once I started to go through the retirement process.
You nailed it. No, I was saying I interrupted you, but I was going to say, yeah, you nailed it. This like when you hear or when you get a comment or a message going, yeah, this is exactly what I need to hear. Like, hey, listen, like I joined because of you, and you talked about how you needed, like when you were young and you joined, how you needed that kind of structure and stuff like that. And one thing that we haven't talked about is that kind of team environment and that team mentality. And it's not, I'm interested to see if you're able to articulate it because I can't yet. I haven't figured out how to articulate it, but it is the team mentality is something that is extremely strong, extremely common in special operations, but it's not tangible. You can't put your finger on it. You can't, at least I can't describe it, in writing or even speaking it, obviously, because I struggled this. But it's something that a lot of folks in a lot of different communities, in fact, most communities don't get a chance to experience. Like for example, we connected over messages, right? But I could easily, we can meet someplace out at the range, and there is, and I'm simplifying it, right? You and I could go shooting, and there's implicit trust immediately on, okay, because we have a foundational level of skills and we know each other that way. And yeah, see, again, I have a difficult time articulating it because there's just, do you know what I'm saying about the team and that thing? It's just this thing of like ours, if you will.
Just instant buy-in, right? Like it's that common ground that I know that, hey, Peaches is a combat controller, and having served with men of his caliber, I know exactly what the type of person that he is, right? I know for a fact that if we're sitting at like, Applebee's and something goes down, you know what I mean? I can count on him to do his part, and he can count on me to do my part. Right? It's just that fundamental foundation. Like, yep, he's tested, I'm tested. We think alike because we're in special operation, right? If it goes down, he's got my back, I have his, right? And it's the same concept with, if we're at the airport, and you got a combat controller shirt on, I have my ODA shirt on, like, we're automatically just going to look at each other and probably strike up a conversation, right? Because it's that mutual respect, like, oh man, he's not only did he served at the highest level. I've served with people of his caliber. I have stories about, AFSW that I can share with them. I don't know. It's just like a certain level of comfort that just comes with it, right? And I always preach that we're all like-minded. you were just smart enough to go to the Air Force. You know what I mean? But we're all like-minded. It's like, MARSOC dudes, SEALs, like Rangers, like we're all, like-minded dudes that just want to get after it, and just get the job done. And we have a
Yeah.
way of gravitating towards each other, right?
Yeah, your Applebee's, like shout out to Applebee's, but your Applebee's scenario, you think about a like a live shooter,
Mhm.
something like that, or not a live shooter, an active shooter, and immediately who are the two dudes or the community of people that are going to turn and run as fast as they possibly can towards those gunshots? It's I mean, I don't know what the percentage is in the population, but not many are going to run towards, and that's why situations like, and this could be a touchy subject, but Uvalde, like that still bugs me to this day. I was nowhere near that, right? Like I'm over here in freaking Nevada and Vegas, right? But knowing that there are situations like that where people that can make a difference and can make things stop didn't, right? So that's like me and my son, we enjoy watching Donut Operator because it's like, quick 10-minute, and you see, law enforcement or something like that put in some work and do great things in extreme situations that just happen like that. Like, it's one thing when you and I are deployed and stuff like that, like we are in that mindset, like that, right? And then these dudes are out here just on a routine traffic stop, and all of a sudden they're fighting for their lives. It's a weird thing.
Type of men, it takes a different breed, which is why we always gravitate towards each other. I mean, it's just how we're wired and just how we carry ourselves, and like till this day, like I hope it never happens, but it's just in us. Like every situation that I find myself, I'm always thinking of, like I'm always wall gaming. Like I'm always thinking of worst case scenarios, how I'm going to react to it. You know what I mean? Because nothing against, the population. I just know that they're not wired that way, right? And if something does happen, I'm that dude in here, and I'm going to do work. And I know somewhere within that space, there's another guy doing the same thing. That's why when it does happen, we kind of just naturally converge towards the threat, and we link up and we do work, right? It's just how we're wired. Yeah.
That's why some of the safest places on the planet, or at least in America, are, Southern Pines, North Carolina. You know what I'm saying? There are certain, areas where you're like, okay, well, this place is extremely safe. And I feel bad for anybody that tries some shit in here, because there's going to be a whole bunch of dudes that are running out of their house or just ready to put in work. And I've talked about it on our channel, like, as somebody, and you'll probably feel the exact same way, as somebody who knows how to manipulate weapons and is essentially, we'll take it back old school, old out west, a gunslinger, right? If you're a gunslinger and you know how to handle a weapon, you have, and the government, especially like the military, has trained you on how to use this weapon to a very, very high level. I feel that we have a duty to conceal carry and put in work whenever work needs to be done. Like there's, we spend our lives downrange. We spend our lives training to deploy, to protect American freedoms. And now I'm back home. That doesn't stop, right? I have to do everything I possibly can to protect my family and anybody, and family, friends, and anybody who is an innocent civilian around me.
Yeah. I agree 100%. I agree 100%. And that's why I conceal carry. Everywhere I go. And then my truck is a riding concealed carry box,
Yeah.
So I agree 100%, man. And it's sad to me that, stuff like that happens in the United States. But it also speaks to, the reality of the world that we live in, right? We see it on a regular or we used to see it on a regular because we would deploy and we would see how the world actually is, right? Because there's evil in the world, and we go take care of that evil. But to see it play out in the States sucks. But it's also a reality to folks that live here. Like, hey, there's evil people in this world.
Yeah.
And people like us are needed to take care of that evil. It's not like we're gun junkies or we're messed up. We just know that men like us need to exist to take care of the evil, or else it's just going to overshadow and take over everything.
Yeah.
As much as I don't want it to happen in the States, it sickens me when it does. I'm just pissed I'm never around to actually get some.
Right. Right. It's again, yeah, you nailed it. You're like, I don't want this to happen.
Yeah.
But if it does, because I know it will at some point, like I just hope that I'm around it.
Yeah.
And that I can do something about it.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing, but can easily be manipulated into, oh, well, you just want some shit to go down, know. It's like, no, I don't want anything to go down. But if it does,
it does go down and you in the same room that I'm in, you're gonna thank God that I'm there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're so, but well, cool, man. Well, as we kind of wrap up, I do want to ask you what kind of advice, and I'm, you've got, dude. Well, first off, congrats on a following. You said you started in 2022. I almost said 2002, but 2022.
Yeah.
And you got a massive following already. So, like, dude, congrats. That's awesome. You have definitely put in the work, and you're putting out quality content and helping mentor folks. So, dude, keep that shit up. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So with that said, what kind of advice do you have for those folks that are wanting to come join? I'll just say special operations, but you can neck it down to specifically SF. Like, please feel free.
Yeah. So, and we'll just keep it to special operations, right? Because again, like I said, we like-minded folks, we just choose to go different paths based on that GT score, right? So first thing you got to understand is the mindset of a special forces operator. Like if you prior to going and prior to trying out, you need to make sure that you're mentally tough for the task at hand. And then you need to make sure you understand why you're doing it. That's a big thing that I push on my channel. Like, why are you doing special operations? Because you can be in the best shape of your life. There's going to come a point during selection where that's not going to matter. And it's going to come down to why you're doing it. That's what's going to get you through. So understand why you're doing it. And it can't be because I want to wear the 511 hats, the Merrill shoes. I want to go outside with a wife beater on. Like, it can't be like materialistic things, right? For me, it was due to 9/11. I was right across the bridge when it took place. That was my why. So when going got tough, and I'm getting kicked in the balls left and right, like that why had to be strong enough to propel me through that, right? So for me, that's what it was. So if you're out there, make sure you know why you're trying to do it. Because if it's superficial, once you're out there sucking, you're just going to quit. And then second thing is make sure you study the answer keys is what I like to say, right? Because a lot of guys that reach out, they're like, yeah, Jay, like, how do I prep for, the physical aspect of selection? I'm like, dude, you know what you're going to do. You know what the ACFT is what the Army calls it now. Like, you know exactly what you're going to have to do. You know, you're going to do, hand release push-ups, pull-ups, plank, and 2-mile run. That's the answer key. Just go study that. And then every month or every 2 months or so, give yourself a mock test. Like, go conduct, those events and see where you're at. And if you're not where you need to be, then switch it up to where you can get to that end state, right? That's the physical aspect of it. And then last thing is make sure you educate yourself, because there's channels like yours out there, One Ready. There's channels like FNG Academy. There's my channel out there. There's a bunch of different, outlets available to you, giving you the information, which I'm sure when you went through, that didn't exist. It didn't exist when I went through.
No.
It's like we're trying to prepare you as much as we can. Now it's up to you to take that information, digest it. And if you have questions, then reach out. I always say, especially for me, because I started putting my stuff behind the paywall. It's like, hey, it's a small price to pay to get to live your dreams, right? Special operations has been a dream for me. Like I owe everything that I have to it. It's a small price to pay. You can pay that small amount of money, to get the information that's going to give you a leg up, or you can live a life of regret and going and failing just because you didn't pay that little bit of money, right? It is what it is. That's the reality of it, right? You and I are or investing our time into this. You know what I mean? So get the information, internalize it. If you have questions, reach out to the guys that's done it before and get the feedback. And then just enjoy the ride. Right? It's gonna be challenging. It's gonna be rewarding. If going special operation is the dream, then you owe it to yourself to do everything that you can to actually make it happen.
No, you nailed it, dude. So you were right across the bridge during 9/11.
Yes.
Dude, that's gnarly.
Yeah. So I was a senior in high school, 2001, September 11th, and I was in shop class. It was computer science, and I went to George Westinghouse High School, which is in downtown Brooklyn, and right across the bridge was the Trade Center. But I remember being in class, and we heard the explosion. Well, we're in downtown Brooklyn. We're like, hey, it's probably construction or whatever, right? So we just kept pushing on classes as normal. And then a student walked in and he was like, hey, like, have you guys seen the news? And we're like, no, like, what's going on? And that's when, we got on the computer and we started seeing the footages. So class let out. And I remember this day vividly because I had to walk from downtown Brooklyn all the way to Canarsie, where I live. It was like an all-day walk because all the transportations were down.
Oh,
Yeah. So you can see just the smoke and the cloud, and just everyone was walking across the bridge to Brooklyn to try to get home. Because what a lot of people don't realize is not like folks that are from New York, like majority of them don't live in Manhattan. They don't live, on the island itself. They work there, but majority of them live in the other boroughs. And to get off the island, you got to use public transportation, right? Whether it's the ferry, the bus, or the train. So when all the transportation got shut down, folks were having to walk across the bridge. And then once they got to the boroughs, they're pretty much walking home because literally, all the buses across all the 5 boroughs were down because we didn't know what we were dealing with. So yeah, it was just sadness all the way around. Just folks with debris all over them, just walking down the bridge in disbelief of what took place. And at that point, majority of our antennas were on top of the World Trade Center for the entire state. So media was completely out. You know what I mean? So yeah, we walk home, and it was just like a sad walk all the way around, just looking to your left and to your right and seeing folks that, barely made it. And then, as a freaking 17-year-old, like, you don't know what to think, right? You're just like,
yeah.
Get home as soon as I can so I can let my mom and dad know that I'm all right. But yeah, it was like a 12-hour walk, all the way to where we live. But yeah, it was horrible, man. And till this day, like, I still remember everything vividly. It was probably like
I can imagine.
I've ever experienced. Yeah,
dude, that's an amazing story. Have you ever talked about that on your channel?
Like I've talked about, why I joined, and I've hit on that, but not in detail as far as the walk home and hearing it happen,
Yeah,
or anything like that. No.
that would be worth it.
Yeah.
I was a pre 9/11 join, right? But everybody since 9/11 has been a combat join, or somebody who's joined while we're in active combat. But that's a gnarly story, dude.
Yeah, it was definitely you just don't expect that type of stuff to happen. You know what I mean? Like, especially in a first world country like the United States, you just don't expect it. And when it did, I don't think, like, no one knew how to react to it, to include our leaders at that point. It was like no one really knew what happened, because it was like, like, there's no way this is happening in the States. Like, what is going on, right? And then once it started to set in, and it was just something that kind of lingered with me all throughout high school. And even afterwards, when I try to, go to college and do a stay there, it was just something that always lingered. And I'm like, you know what, I need to go. Like, and it's it's funny how, like-minded folks like you and myself, like regardless of what we're trying to do with life, it's just that calling just keeps eating away at you till eventually you find your way going towards that route, right?
Yeah.
Because even when I joined, like I wasn't expecting to do special operations. I was just to a Bravo getting after it. And then once I found out about it, it was like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. Like the universe just has a way of just putting you, in that path to make sure you end up, going towards this calling, because it's something that we do need. And even though you don't think it's for you, like once you get the information, which is why what we're doing is so important, because I've had guys reach out to me and say, oh man, like I started following you and, I'm, in college, and this is what I want to do. Like, how do I do it? Or I have guys saying, hey, I'm 38 and, I'm a lawyer, but I want to be special operations. Like I've tried to get it out of my head, but I can't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the more folks like you and I get out here and do this, the more people are going to start to realize, hey, this is what I'm supposed to do. And they're going to gravitate towards it and, start making a difference.
Yeah, it's definitely a calling of service. Like like, and whether service or not has a bad connotation. I think it depends on the way you use it, but
Yeah.
Most of us have some kind of something is telling us to serve, and we get it's rewarding to serve.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so maybe we put things behind a paywall, right? Making content, but
Yeah.
It takes a lot of work, right?
It
Like,
does.
it's we've been doing this since 2019, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is easy, right? I say easy. This is easier than it was when we first started, but there's still, it doesn't take away the time, the effort that it takes to do this kind of stuff. And then, so putting it behind a paywall, like that makes sense because you still got to make a living.
Yeah.
But you're still serving the next generation, which is awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing it, and thanks for the dude. I could totally go into the whole 9/11 thing right now, talking with you about it. It's awesome, but I would just because that struck a chord with me, like I would either come back on with us and let's talk all about that, or do a channel or do an episode yourself, because that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, man, like whatever I can do to help you guys in any way, shape, or form, let me know, whether it's come back on. Because I really want to start working with guys that have a similar mission to what we have, which is getting these guys at the very, genesis of their careers, because that's where we can really make a difference, right? Once they go to the grinder and they've been chewed up and spit out on the other end, and now they're telling their war stories of whatever they went through and how they're depressed and suicidal and all of that. It's like, well, how do we, try to serve them at the very beginning and then coach, teach, and mentor them throughout so they know what to expect and they know how to navigate it so they don't end up on the back end as, goods that's no longer viable to society. Right. And I know it's possible because, you and I are on the back end right now and we know what we did to make sure we, successfully navigated our careers. So now how do we take that and, help this next generation navigate it, just like we did to come out and be successful. That's why I think platforms like what you guys have and what F&G and I have are so important because, we're a different type of people, but this job has it's rewarding, but there's also a dark side to it, right? Mm-hmm. There's the stuff that we go through, and the stuff that we see. It's not normal for a normal human being, right? Even though we're hardened and we're tough, there's still effects to everything that we see and we go through, and knowing how to successfully navigate that trauma is very important to not only be a successful operator, but to be a successful father, a successful son, a successful husband. Like it's all a successful part of society. It's all important. And if you go in blind expecting you're just going to go through it, shoot people in the face, sleep good at night, and then wake up and go about your business, then you're misinformed, right? And people need to see the holistic picture, the good, the bad, and the ugly, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. You're striking a nerve with me. It's awesome. So,
Hey,
well, real quick before we
you know,
close up, where can people find you?
So yeah, Green Beret Chronicles, the YouTube channel, and then I'm also on Instagram, Green Beret Chronicles. Right, I make it my point to reply to everything that I get, just because you never really know where the next J Dorleus is. You never really know where the next speeches is. Right, so you just have to answer everybody's inquiries as they come in, because I don't want to leave any stone unturned, especially if I have the ability to help that, old 18-year-old me that's out there trying to figure out his path. So yeah, if you get a hold of me at any one of those platforms, I'll reach back out to you, and then we can start a conversation.
Good deal, man. Well, Jay, really appreciate you coming on. Everybody that's out there, don't forget to like, subscribe to One's Ready, but also like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to Green Beret Chronicles. Chronicles. Man, I cannot talk today. It's bad.
It's all
Green Beret Chronicles. There we go. All right, Jay, you have a good one.
You too, buddy.